When I was cleaning my room, suddenly noticed a hole in the wall. I ripped off layer after layer of wallpaper, and to my surprise, I found a heavy iron door hidden beneath. Looking at the unique keyhole, I suddenly remembered the 2 iron pieces I had discarded earlier. I put them together, and miraculously, I was able to open the iron door. However, behind the door was just an empty room. The moment my wife walked into the room, the lights inside started flickering. I thought it was just a wiring issue, so I called a repairman. When the repairman saw the basement full of wires, he seemed at a loss. The wires were like a complex, intricate machine. Helpless, the repairman had no choice but to leave hastily. That night, I went into the mysterious room alone. Looking at the empty bottle in my hand, I casually said, "I could really use another bottle." Suddenly, the light started to go out. A bottle of unopened alcohol appeared right in front of me. The next day, when my wife walked into the room was filled with all sorts of items. I couldn't wait to show her some famous paintings. At first, Lisa thought something had happened to me. I couldn't explain it to her clearly, so I decided to demonstrate it to her directly. I asked her to name the thing she wanted most.
I want $1,000.
Then, the light started to go out again. On the ground, a pile of money appeared neatly. Although all of this seemed unreal, the lights kept going out one after another, and we ended up carrying tons of money out of the room. Soon, the room was filled with priceless paintings. We were having a blast, enjoying ourselves in the room. But the problem was, after all the extreme pleasure, we were left with emptiness, and for some reason, we couldn't have children. Now that we had this room that could fulfill any wish, Lisa began to have a terrifying thought. One day, when I came home, I discovered that Lisa had used the room to create a baby out of thin air. Although I wanted a child too, I couldn't let it happen this way. After talking to her, Lisa finally agreed to use the wishing room to erase the baby from this world. However, she could never make up her mind. Until I was holding the baby, ready to make the wish, I realized that I actually wanted a child too. In the end, we decided to keep the baby. However, recent events have made me curious about the origin of this room. So, I looked up some information online. I found out that the previous owner of the house had been murdered. The murderer claimed that he had committed the crime because of the room's influence. As a result, he had been locked in a mental hospital ever since. I took a handful of money and stuffed it into my pocket, then immediately drove to the mental hospital to visit the murderer. But when I mentioned the murderer's name, the hospital staff looked surprised. I was the first person in 45 years to come to see the murderer. When the murderer saw me, he simply told me to leave this place.
Forget about the room. Get out of the house and do that now, before it's too late.
I left the mental hospital with a heavy heart. However, when I was paying at the gas station, I realized the money I had brought had turned to ashes. I immediately realized something was wrong, so I sped up and drove home. I grabbed a large stack of money from the room, went to the window, and threw it out. Sure enough, before the money hit the ground, it turned to ashes. To confirm further, I took out a famous painting. I exposed half of the painting outside, and placed the other half inside the door. A few seconds later, the outside half of the painting turned to dust. To uncover the truth, I rushed into the room and started hammering the walls fiercely.